Hi there, Ian Bremmer here, and a quick take on that Iranian retaliation, a strike against a U.S. base in Qatar, massive base, also in the middle of the desert, and they warned the Americans well in advance. This is also by far the best defended of American bases in the region. You've got THAAD missile defense systems, you've got Patriot missile defense systems, you've got a U.S. destroyer in the region that has missile defense capabilities, and of course you also have support from the Qatari defenses as well. And just heard from the Qatari Ministry of Defense that there were no casualties, no injuries, no deaths. The Iranians, both in the selection of the targets and in the advance warning to the Americans, and the way they've presented this publicly, as many missiles being shot against the Americans, as the Americans used against Iran, saying that this is it. This is what they're doing. This is their retaliation. It shows a few things. First of all, it shows incredible weakness on the part of the Iranian government. At least as of today, you would consider this to be the biggest foreign policy win for President Trump and his administration of this second term to date. Now, anything can happen over the coming weeks and months, and there can be further escalation, fog of war. The Israelis are participating, all of these things. But for now, the Iranian response to the American attacks to take out Iran's cornerstone of its nuclear capabilities responded by Iran with virtually nothing. Now, of course, what they told their own people was spectacular successes in destroying American bases, and that the Americans did nothing, only marginal damage to Iran. Of course, that's all part of this. Remember, back when Trump attacked Iran and assassinated Qasem Soleimani, he was a hero. This is his first term, a hero for the Iranian people. And a war hero, a leader, and there's no way that you can sugarcoat that. I mean, he's dead, he's killed by the Americans. People know that. The Iranians have a harder time restraining their response. American attacks against a secret program deep underground, under a mountain, the Iranians can say whatever they want. It's very hard for their people to know exactly what went on. So, I mean, here the Israelis doing a lot more damage to Iran, Iran hitting them back, even if ineffectively. The United States, a different story. So what we're seeing here is that this Islamic Republic desperately does not want to precipitate further American escalation. They know they don't have the cards, as Trump would say, and that they're in great danger if the Americans decide to continue hitting them. And the interesting point here is that of the three belligerents in the war, the United States, Israel, and Iran, the Iranians are the most risk averse. And that certainly has not been always true historically, but it is right now because the Iranians are comparatively so powerless. Now, what ends up happening going forward depends so much on whether Trump takes this as a win. I suspect he will. And therefore, I don't think you're going to see significant further American attacks in response to what the Iranians just did. And also whether the Israelis are comfortable and happy with it, or whether they'll continue to engage in strikes against the Iranians and mow the grass, as they would call it. And does that elicit further attacks? That's one question. A second question is to what extent we see that the Iranians are capable of continuing to respond coherently, because, of course, their regime is taking big hits. Over 30 of their top military leadership has been assassinated. They've shut down their internet to prevent surveillance and eavesdropping from the Americans and the Israelis. But that also means they can't communicate well. They can't meet together. They're in hiding. The supreme leader is deep underground in a bunker, which makes it a lot harder to engage in negotiations. And unless there's a ceasefire that the Israelis are prepared to actually stand by, then Iran's capacity to engage in meaningful ongoing negotiations will be constrained. And the potential for rogue actors in the Iranian military to take steps that could be escalatory, even if the supreme leader and the military leadership doesn't necessarily want it, that becomes a risk as well. So there are concerns certainly going forward. There's the potential for escalation. I will finally note that oil prices came down after these Iranian strikes. You don't usually see those headlines, Iranian strikes, and then oil prices come off. And that's because, of course, the Straits of Hormuz untouched, Gulf energy production and refining untouched, and Iran's energy production and export capabilities largely untouched. And as long as the latter remains true, very unlikely that the Iranians would take the suicidal move of shutting down the straits. And Trump has been posting about that earlier today. So again, for now, big win for President Trump, big win for the Israeli Prime Minister, and a lot of trouble that Iran, friendless and powerless on the global stage, is facing as a consequence of all this. That's it for me, and I'll talk to you all real soon.